I'm really enjoying thus far the complete and utter breakdowns that they have for each, I guess, main creature in each arc that we've seen so far. It's very cool. Gourmet number 46, Death's Shadow. I'm just going to take a moment to read a couple of the high points about the Regal Mammoth. It's called a food gem since antiquity. This giant mammoth grows like nobody's business. Just a few weeks after birth, they are already 50 meters in length, and they are typically born around 10 meters in length. They don't reproduce often, but they have long lifespans, sometimes over 500 years of age, during which they never stop growing. The mammoth that Toriko and company currently are in is 500 years old and over 1,500 meters long. The jewel meat's location varies from animal to animal, making it hard to find. Retail price for 100 grams is 50 million yen. They have 12 stomachs in total, and they can break almost anything down. Since the body is so large, air gets trapped in there too, and as a result, whole ecosystems develop. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome, awe-inspiring, many times appetite-inducing tale of Toriko. Our last chapter, of course, saw us with being, so far, my personal favorite, just in the way that Coco defeated that giant GT robot. It was very clever. I think the use of just, some real-life things as far as some of the, the hydrochloric acid and the different types of chemical reactions that were used, I thought was brilliant. And really it wound up being, at the end, of course, the GT robot, the large one, falling, but Coco falling as well, and us seeing Stargen, the Stargen-controlled GT robot approaching, that area. So that's where things left off. Of course, that's where things pick up in a way. We actually wind up going into the Regal Mammoth and seeing, Toriko and Rin and Komatsu. And, of course, we've been away from them for a couple of chapters now, but it's kind of neat because we see Komatsu going and slicing off a little piece of meat, from this Regal Mammoth. And as I talked about in the description of it, the thing is just so huge. I mean, absolutely ridiculous that this one, being 500 years old, is 1,500 meters long. I mean, I just looked at that and I thought that's nearly a mile long. I mean, this thing is this is a moving aircraft carrier. I mean, this is huge, And certainly you can see now why they can get inside the body and it's not even noticed. I thought it was also kind of neat how it, talked about the Regal Mammoth developing its own, ecosystem inside of it because of its pure, just grandiose size, right? So anyway, so he goes and he slices off a little bit and he goes and he dips it in some of the soy sauce, from that soy hopper bug sauce where he just dips it in there. He's like, oh, this is great. Tastes like prime rib and this and that, I think so he's kind of figuring out what type of meat it is and the location that they're in. And he's like, this is just so lovely, He's like, even uncooked, even raw. He's like, Rin, do you want some? Now, I'm not much for eating raw meat. I'm not one of those people. It's like, yeah, make sure it's still bleeding. I want the cow to still be mooing, and that's good, or throw it on the fire and just turn it real quick and put it on my plate. I like it, like a medium. I used to like some pink in the middle over there. But I have eaten stuff that's more on the raw side. And although it isn't my favorite thing to do, certainly a high quality cut of meat is definitely something that's kind of neat, especially if you have a nice sauce or something to dip it in. But anyway, Rin's all like, oh, this is great. I've never tried Regal Mammoth meat, right? So they're about to sit down and chill and relax. And then you go and you see Toriko, and he's sitting over here, and there's a bunch of these snail snakes or whatever, mollusks, capture level 4, just sort of writhing around. And he's like, he's like, a Regal Mammoth's innards and stomach area here is no place to be, screwing around and having, and stopping to have a party. And this is coming from Toriko, who is basically, he's the guy who is always, hungry, always wanting to chill, always like, don't worry about it, it's cool, man, So for him to be, freaking out, he goes and he says, it's really weird what's going on in here. They're all agitated and stuff, and it wasn't like this when we got in here. It's almost like there's, it's almost like this thing, like the mammoth is trying to expel, toxins or bad things, foreign entities from its body, right? And then he goes and he's like, and Toriko's like, just drop the meat, run, It's so funny because you see Komatsu and he's got this big old side of beef, and he's just like, come on, and he starts running because everything starts just going haywire inside there. I kind of picture it being like a almost like when you're in a cavern, and all of a sudden there's like an earthquake or something like that, an avalanche coming down the mountain, what have you, something like that. So Toriko's running, and it's funny because even Komatsu says he's just like, man, Toriko is normally not one to pass up a meal, and I wonder if he's just like saving himself for the jewel meat, or if it's really like that bad that, he thinks that, hey, I don't even have time to stop and eat now. So either way, Komatsu's a little bit freaked out. They start running after Toriko, and Toriko, it's kind of funny because they show this really cool one-page deal over here with him, and I'll actually pull it out if I can get to it real quick. And it shows the Stargin-controlled GT robot, and he's just like, I hope I'm wrong, but did he make it in here? If so, then we better hope we don't run into him. So it's basically now it's just kind of like a, let's hope that we can get to the jewel meat and get out of here before we have to fight him, because Toriko truly seems as if he's nervous or scared about this, this Stargin-controlled GT robot. So apparently this is a guy not to be fucked with. But I definitely thought it was kind of cool to show how that worked out. Then what we wound up having is then you go and you see the fight between that other GT robot, the one that kind of has the cool looking like Indian headdress type thing. The straw almost looks like bamboo shoots coming out the back of its head. I call it like the tribal one because that's what it reminds me of. That one that's fighting Sunny, you see him kind of running, and Sunny's like, don't run, that's not beautiful, I told you. And then the thing goes and fires some stuff at him, and Sunny goes and, catches it, and he's able to spatula whack it back, and it's just kind of this cat and mouse game, and he's just like, and Sunny's like, what the hell, I don't want you to have to, I want to kick your ass, what's going on? The GT robot winds up going, and he says, listen, I'm not going to play into that game with you over there, he goes, eventually you'll wear down and you won't be able to repel my attacks anymore, but I'm not going to go and get up close to you and have you go and pull out that, his crazy being aura, that he has, or that monstrous aura that you have, and try to fight against that, It's basically like, hey, listen, man, I'm not fighting a dude on crack. I'm going to wait until the crack wears off, you know what I mean? So, and that's pretty much what he's saying, I'm just going to kind of duck, dodge, dive, weave, and, whatever else they say in Dodgeball, the 5Ds, So, anybody who hasn't seen the movie, take a look at it. Ben Stiller and, oh my God, I can't remember the other fella's name, but definitely I think a very, very funny movie. So we wind up getting then several pages of them fighting each other, and then I thought it was kind of cool because they go and they give us a a whole like 10 minutes earlier, 10 minutes prior, and we see the Stargin-controlled GT robot as it was left in the last chapter, where the last chapter left off, and he goes and he's approaching Coco, who's laying there on the ground. He sees the decimation of Coco and, of course, the GT robot, and now he's just laying there, and then he goes and he sees the mammoth, and Toriko had mentioned as well that that the poison, whatever it was, whatever anesthetic or poison or what have you that Coco had used on the mammoth is obviously wearing off as well, so maybe he thought it was a combination of the both, or maybe at first he thought it was the poison wearing off, and then he thought maybe it was that Stargin was in there with them or something like that. I really thought it was kind of cool though, because then they go and they do the 10 minutes prior. They show him walking up, kind of checking everything out, looking, and then all of a sudden they just show him like kind of shoot up into the mammoth over here. And I don't know if he just shot up into the mammoth and he shot right through him. It like made a hole in him, because the mammoth, it says jolt, and the mammoth's like, or if he went in through the bunghole, because either way, that probably wouldn't feel good, having a GT robot, no matter how big you are, having a GT robot jammed in your asshole is probably not something that's desirable. I don't care what your sexual orientation is, probably just not desirable, not with that type of force anyway. Either that, or he just went and fired straight through his body. Either way, though, we know that is what's actually causing the mammoth to kind of want to expel that evil, that badness, whatever you want to call it. I call it getting the evil out. So, it's just one of those things after you have a long night of like drinking, you eat the Taco Bell real late at 2 in the morning, the next morning you got to wake up and you're grabbing onto the side of the toilet, praying to God, and you're just trying to get the evil out. And that's what I always refer to it as. And I think it's the same type of thing with the Regal Mammoth. It senses this thing. It's just like, oh my God, I got to get this thing out of me. So that's why I'm thinking that he probably just went and propelled in and just straight up made a hole. No matter how big the Regal Mammoth is, it still doesn't feel good to get a hole ripped through you by this robot. So, or, if one goes up your bunghole, I'm sure that probably doesn't feel comfortable either. And then the end of the chapter is kind of neat, because we get Coco, and he's laying there just like, he's like, oh, that robot's going to kill somebody. He can't even breathe. He's just like, oh, somebody's going to die. So he obviously sees the aura, that shadow of death over someone. He can't pinpoint it, but he knows that somebody is going to die, and that certainly does not bode well for you know, Sunny, Rin, Komatsu, and of course Toriko, who are inside the Mammoth with now 2 GT robots. One of them being, you know, one that I don't really look at as much as a threat as the Stargen controlled one, because clearly everybody is scared of this guy. So definitely a cool chapter, though. That's where things wrapped up. And I guess, you know, my chapter question is actually going to be, you know, what did you think about, and what do you think about, they've done this now with each major arc, with each arc so far, and we've only been through a few of them, but I remember them doing the whole diagram thing in the puffer whale, and I really liked the explanation and the way everything was drawn out and pinpointed the different types of meat, the size of it, its age, where it comes from, how they grow, all that stuff. I like that background and that history. I've always enjoyed history, and even though I wasn't the biggest fan of, like, school, I enjoyed sitting down and learning about some of those different things historically, and then as well as in science. I like watching things on the Discovery Channel or the Science Channel or the Learning Channel, and learning about, you know, planets or stars, or, you know, some, because there's always something new that you pick up on, you know, and obviously this is in a fictional world. But what do you think? My question, to get to my question, is what do you think about so far each creature, a major creature of the arc, has gotten a really vivid, in-depth explanation on all those different points that I brought up just a minute ago. So what are your thoughts on that, and of course the use of this in-depth descriptive explanations by the author? Leave your answer to that question in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you have not done so already. We will look forward to catching all of you in the next one, nation. If you'd like to see more of my drawings, go on over to my Facebook or Instagram page and check them out.